morning, everyone. First, let me start by saying thank you for your patience and your time the last couple of weeks. Feels like a lot longer than that. And for your attention to the case that we presented to you, the case of State of Florida versus Tyrone Tucker. Now, in just a few hours, it's going to be your turn to take all this information back to the deliberation room and start your deliberation in this case. You're going to have to determine what you found to be credible and what you found to be not credible. And you will be the ultimate deciders of what evidence you believe and what evidence you don't believe. Now, I hear this a lot in this courtroom. In life, they say the devil is in the detail. And I think no case embodies that more than the case we just presented to you, because the devil really is in the detail in this case. I submit to you that the most credible evidence that you received was the testimony of John Travis Johnson. That is going to be the most credible evidence that you received in this case. And I believe you will come to that determination because of the detail that is involved in that testimony. Now, you got a chance to meet John Travis Johnson. He came in this courtroom and you met him. He's a pretty simple guy. He's not overly sophisticated. He's obviously struggled since he got out of the military. He's got PTSD issues. He's got some addiction issues. He owned up to all of that. He didn't hide any of that from you. The reason he was in Key West back in 2017, he came here looking for work after the hurricane, and he fell into his old ways. Right? He said he met up with some old friends that he used to know out on the beach, started doing drugs with them, started drinking, fell back into his old routine, finds himself living at this warehouse where he makes the acquaintance of this man over here, Tyrone Tucker, and another man, Rory Wilson. And the three of them party together. They party together. And what does that partying involve? Alcohol and drugs. And like all parties, the party ends at some point. They run out of alcohol, they run out of drugs, and they run out of money. So he tells you it's time to figure out a way to get more. So what does he do? What do they do? The three of them get together. Travis told you that Wilson came back from, I believe it was the Burger King, and said, hey, I got some information about this lady over at the Treehouse. She's got drugs, she's got money. We need to do a lick. Let's go over there and hit that. John Travis Johnson said to you, he wanted more drugs. He didn't really want to be involved, but he wanted more drugs. Now, he's got the truck. They need a ride over there. So it makes sense. It's his truck. He's determined to be the one that's going to drive them over there. What's he getting out of the deal? Gas money, and he gets to smoke the take. Who are the other two players in this scenario? Tucker and Wilson. That's what he told you. That makes sense. Now, they get together. He said, he testified, he didn't know anything about the legal theory of principal theory. You're going to get that instruction that I talked about during jury selection. The principal instruction is going to tell you that it's kind of an all for one, one for all scenario. I'll specifically read the instruction a little bit later here, but I want to stay with John Travis Johnson's testimony first. He said he knew nothing about the principal theory, and he knew nothing about this felony murder theory. So, you mean while we're committing a robbery, if somebody ends up getting killed, I could be charged with murder? Yes, sir. It's called felony murder. And that's exactly what happened in this scenario. The three of them hatched this plan to go over to the Treehouse. He gives you great detail about how the plan was hatched. They did a drive-by earlier just to kind of case the joint out. And remember, I told you during jury selection, if a crime's committed at the Basilica, you're going to have nuns and priests for your witnesses, right? Well, the Treehouse is no Basilica, all right? The Treehouse was a flop house, a drug den in the middle of Stock Island, where people were living in a ramshackle structure with no water, no electricity. And what did they do in that place? Drugs, alcohol. Paula Belmonte said prostitution. Who knows? It's not the Basilica. So they get this great lead, right? They're going to go over there and do this robbery. So they case the joint. He drives them over there. Or after they get done with the casing, they go back to the warehouse. Tucker puts on dark clothing. Wilson puts on dark clothing. Travis drives them back over. Why should you believe that? It's corroborated. Corroboration is important in this case. That's the detail I'm talking about. Devil in the detail, corroboration. His story, his testimony is evidence. That evidence is corroborated. So he goes over to the Treehouse. We saw those videos time and time and time again. You see a flash of the truck first. That's 8 minutes later, I think, 9 minutes later, you see the truck pull up. I'm sorry, I misspoke that. The first drive-by, we didn't see. When they go over there to commit the actual crime, they said there was a car out in front of the Treehouse. And you see the truck pull all the way through, and it goes around the block. Truck pulls back up, and you see two guys wearing dark clothing heading from the truck towards the Treehouse. Corroboration of what Travis testified to. It corroborates him. Now, Travis is not a manipulative person. I submit to you the manipulative person's this guy over here. That's the master manipulator, not Travis. You saw Travis. He's about as simple as it gets. Travis said he was in the front seat. He saw them go in that gate. A few minutes later, he sees somebody running from the gate. What do we see on the video? Corroboration. Sure enough, we see a man with a flashlight come running out of the gate, up over the hill to CVS. It's exactly what Travis said. After that, we see a guy in dark clothing come running from the direction of the Treehouse towards the direction where the truck had dropped him off. Consistent with what Travis said happened that night, that he saw Tucker coming out of the Treehouse with this bag in his hand, fumbling with it, right? And he sees him running, and he takes off because he's terrified at this point. Now, Travis says he sees Tucker fumbling with the bag. Who does Roger Ragged say grabbed the bag out of the Treehouse? The second person. Who does Paula Belmonte say grabbed the bag, her purse, her bag, whatever? The second person. That's consistent with what Travis told you. Travis also said that when Captain Phelps kind of figured it out, he knew the jig was up and it was time to pay the piper. And he said when he saw that, he was shocked. When she laid it out, he was shocked because she had it to a T. Now, she didn't tell him what to say. She laid out the basics of what the investigation had revealed, but Travis filled in all the details about particulars in this plan. Devil in the detail. So, Travis owns up to it. Time to face the music. And he gives his statement back in November of 2017, and he's arrested. And that statement has remained unimpeached to this day. He gave a proffer in 2022. He didn't get a deal until 2022, after he'd been in jail for 4.5 years. That's when the state approached him. Again, we don't pick our witnesses, right? The Basilica, one thing. Treehouse, another. The state approached him and said, we need your testimony. We believe if you're the getaway driver, you're the least culpable. So we'll work with you. And he agreed. And he came in here and he testified today consistently with every other time he testified. Consistently. That's why he should be believed, because he's credible. Now, because it's important that you understand the nature of his testimony, and because I submit to you the abiding belief in his testimony, we've got a PowerPoint here that we put together to kind of highlight why you should believe Travis Johnson.
Your Honor, Judge, I'm sorry, would you mind if I got a
No, you can reposition yourself so you're able to view the screen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa.
I think it would be preferable if he had a seat there. Well, I think it would be preferable if we can, one of the deputies can help with a seat there, and so I would just prefer that the person making the argument being the only one standing, so thank you.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, I did you all a favor. I brought somebody much smarter about these things that was born in a different generation. She will run the computer for me and I will refer to it, okay? So let's talk about Travis's testimony in regards to the sequence of events at the Treehouse. Travis says he drove by once, returned, and he parked past the Treehouse, and Wilson and Tucker got out and walked towards the Treehouse. We see that on the video, the Cosme video. Travis says he saw Wilson and Tucker go through the gate of the Treehouse. I'm sorry, I lost my way. About 5 minutes later, a man that we learned was O'Quinn ran from the Treehouse towards CVS carrying a flashlight. That man yelled for police. Tucker ran towards Travis's truck, but Travis drove off. Travis said he did not see Rory running towards his truck. What corroborates that testimony? The Cosme video corroborates it. Detective Fernandez, who you heard from, testified he saw a truck in the video. Detective Malone, who testified, said, or gave a detailed description of the events that were observed in the Cosme video. She was able to point out the man running towards CVS with the flashlight. And we also see the man running from the Treehouse, who is Franklin Tucker. Now, later on we see, I think they use the word lumbering, because Wilson was described as somebody who would not be capable of running fast because he's a stocky guy. There was about a minute delay before the second person appeared in the video after Tucker is seen running towards the truck. All corroborating Travis's testimony. And folks, let's remember, Travis says when they got in the truck, Wilson had a club and this defendant had a knife. Now, we find Wilson's DNA on the knife. Obviously, if Travis really wanted to tailor his testimony, he had to switch that around. But he's been adamant that's not what it was. It was this defendant that had a knife in his hand, and Wilson had the club. Well, we know Wilson's DNA ends up on the knife. It was a full-on fracas inside that Treehouse. Fists are flying. There's chaos. Roger Raggett told you they were all over the place. Somebody threw him into a tarp. Somebody had him up against a wall or a floor or something. Paula had a guy on top of her. Weapons could have been easily switched around. And those are the only weapons that Travis saw. We don't know if there are other weapons in their pockets. But as far as Travis's testimony towards the sequence of events, it's corroborated by the evidence. Let's go to the next one. The map of the route that they took. Travis testified detailed the route taken for the drive-by and for the robbery. You see the video of Travis's confession. He draws the map during his interview with Detective Pitcher and Phelps. Phelps traced the route along the map that was in the wrong direction. Travis corrects her, and he says no. And Travis showed the correct direction on the map. And remember, Travis's interview was before they showed him the videos from Cosme and the Electric Company. This testimony came before he saw those videos. So he wasn't tailoring his testimony to the videos, hadn't seen them yet. Vanessa, could you play the next one? Here's the portion of his interview where he addresses the map.
Right there, the curb stops. Okay. So each time you come into this loop, just come straight down 2nd Street. Okay.
No, we came that way. He corrects her. He's not tailoring it to something he hasn't seen yet. Vanessa, let's go to the next one, please. As far as Travis's testimony about Rory wearing the black shorts and the black long sleeve shirt, In Paula's video deposition, 2 different times she describes the person attacking her. And this is the video that you all saw, the perpetuated testimony you saw this week. Yes, he was wearing the same. He was wearing like a dark blue sweatshirt, shorts, and these like shoe boot, black shoe boot things. They were like boot material, but not as high as boots. They were shoes, if that makes sense. Dark blue or black sweatshirt, shorts, and the black shoe things, and a mask, which I didn't realize at first he had a mask on because he jumped right on top of me. Next one. Travis testifies that Rory went into the treehouse to commit the robbery. We see the 2 guys walking from the truck towards the treehouse, and Travis says he saw them entering the gate. Paula identifies, to corroborate that, you can look to Paula's testimony. She identifies Rory back in 2017 as the person attacking her, and she says it again in her deposition testimony. How do you know that was the person? I knew who it was immediately just by who he was. I mean, the voice, after hearing the voice, there was no doubt in my mind. He was wearing the same clothes and being at the house earlier. That corroborates Travis's testimony. Travis testifies about Tucker wearing long black pants, black shirt, and black boots. That's what he says Tucker was wearing. Let's look to Paula's video deposition. So did you tell the police that you thought the person might be black because the person was wearing black clothing? Wearing all black, yeah. I guess I just associated, I don't know, I guess I originally thought it was a black guy because he was wearing all black and was told it was a white guy. Ma'am, the person was dressed in all black. That's Paula's testimony, which corroborates Travis's. Tucker was wearing all black. That's what Paula identifies the second person as wearing, all black. Next one. Still talking about Travis's testimony about Tucker wearing long black pants, the black shirt, and the black boots. Travis's video confession, he was wearing a pair of black pants and a black shirt and one of those, I guess it's called a neck gaiter, one of those hoodie things. Who was wearing the neck gaiter? Tyrone. I guess it's called a neck gaiter, one of those hoodie things. Next one. All right. We know, neck gaiter was never found. We know that. It was not presented to you. But we also saw a booking photo of this defendant. And a regular mask coming down over your head is not going to cover that long goatee. But a neck gaiter would. Devil's in the detail. Why believe Travis? It makes sense. You pull a neck gaiter up, you cover that big goatee. That's why you believe Travis. It makes sense. It's corroborated. Travis testifies about the black hoodie. He testifies Tucker put on a black neck gaiter around his neck when he got ready to go to the treehouse. In Travis's video, again, I guess it's called a neck gaiter, one of those hoodie things. That's corroborated by Paula. Paula says, all I saw was the back of that person. He was a little smaller. He was a littler, smaller, like not as wide, wearing a black hoodie. I just saw the back of them. They had a dark hoodie on. A dark hoodie and all over sweatshirt, hoodie, and dark pants. She's describing Tucker to a T exactly the same way Travis described him. Corroboration. Corroboration. Next one. More about the neck gaiter that Travis testified to and how it covers Tucker's goatee. Tucker had a black neck gaiter around his neck when he left the warehouse. The word Jägermeister was written all over it. And then Travis showed you how the neck gaiter could be pulled up to hide his neck and face. Again, like I just said, Tucker had this long goatee in 2017. Vanessa, let's play that video. Just right there is fine.
He put on a pair of black pants and a black shirt. One of them, I guess it's called a neck gaiter. One of those, okay, hoodie things. Who had the neck gaiter, right? Tyrone, okay. Because he's got a beard this small. Okay.
He described him to a T. He's got a beard this long. You saw the beard. Neck gaiter covers it up. And this was all done. They didn't tell Travis anything about a Jägermeister neck gaiter. Phelps didn't say anything about that. Those were details that Travis provided to them. They didn't give him his narrative. He gave them his narrative. Tucker's before Travis described them. Next one, Beth, please. All right, here's Travis's testimony about the mask. This is the mask that Wilson had on, the demon mask. Most evil, most horrible demon mask you can basically describe. It's the mask that Wilson was wearing when he came out of the warehouse. Detective Malone testified the mask was found in a boat near the Treehouse. Roger Raggett testified the two men were wearing skull masks. Roger Raggett says they had some kind of masks on. It corroborates what Travis was saying. It corroborates what Paula was saying. Vanessa, let's play that video.
Did you see Detroit do anything with the, like a neck gator or anything? I think he had it just look like a, what do you call it, beanie, hoodie thing. Okay. And, a freaking mask. What the mask look like? Demon. Okay. Like when you say demon, I see you say, tell me what you describe his name. That's sharp teeth. That's great. Almost like a dinosaur-ish type. Okay. Looking thing.
He said, looks like a demon with sharp teeth. You all remember this mask, right? Teeth don't get much sharper than they are in this mask. Why believe Travis? The evidence corroborates what he said. He described a demon mask with sharp teeth. Nobody gave him that description. Phelps didn't feed him that. Nope, those are details that Travis gave. I'm sorry, ladies, thank you. Those are details that Travis gave to them. Those are not details they gave to Travis. The defendant wanted to say that they gave Travis his narrative. No, they didn't. Travis gave his own narrative. Travis gave details on a mask, and it's 100% identical to the mask he identified here in court. Thank you. Next one.
Did you see?
Travis testified about the knife that he saw in Tucker's hands. He says Tucker had a knife in his hand. I could see it in his hand. He was carrying it when he came out of the warehouse. When he came out of the warehouse getting ready to go over to the Treehouse for the hit. What corroborates that testimony? We found a knife in a planter box in the yard of a neighbor on November 18th, the day after the murder. This person lived at the Water's Edge Trailer Park. That's where they testified they found, Devalier testified that's where they found the mask. Water's Edge Trailer Park on 2nd Street, the direct route from the Treehouse to the warehouse. So they found the knife on the direct route from the Treehouse to the warehouse, the knife that Travis described to a T in court and to the detectives. Devalier identified the photographs of the knife while he was on the stand. That corroborates Travis's testimony. He saw Tucker with a red and black knife with two edges. That's the knife that was found on the path back to the warehouse. Next one. Still talking about the knife, he gave them details of the knife. Vanessa, let's play that video, please.
Now, when they got their stuff, when you said they got their stuff, what did they bring to the trunk to go do the work? What did they bring? He got his mask and their clothes and the gloves. Okay. And I think Kai had a razor knife or not a razor knife, but a diet knife. But just like the kind you strap to your leg? Yeah. Okay. Was it in a sheet or just like just a knife by itself? It was in a sheet. Okay. What color was the sheet? Black. What about, was it blue, green, yellow, pink? Red. All red? With black hair. With black hair? Could you like the handle, the blade was red and the handle was black? Or the blade was same too. Okay. And then the handle was black and red?
Blade was stainless steel, handle was black and red. He also has a knife collection. He wasn't hiding that from anybody.
Anything else about it you can think of? Anything else about it you think it's got the black? Is it there was a certain red, so it's still more areas that locked it in. Was it anything else on the inside or on the inside? Any kind of Travis sheet with a strap on it or straps on the leg? It didn't have straps. Okay, just a plastic, like a hard plastic sheet, maybe that, okay.
Corroborates Travis's testimony. And lo and behold, how did Matthew Bonnett die? Stab wounds to his back. What blood was on the knife? The confirmatory blood was Wilson. But the defendant's DNA could neither be included or excluded. And you heard the DNA analyst. Just because she can't say it's included or excluded doesn't mean he didn't touch the knife. I think when David held up a pen, does this automatically mean my DNA is on the pen? No, it doesn't automatically mean that. It could. What she said was if there's not enough DNA in the profile for the test, then she can't make a conclusive finding one way or the other. So she never said his DNA wasn't on the knife. She said it was inconclusive. But she was able to conclude Wilson's DNA was on the knife. That knife very easily could have been passed around. For all we know, Tucker stabbed Bonnett and Wilson picked the knife up afterwards. Or the other way around, we don't know. And you know what? Under the principal theory and under felony murder, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who wielded the knife in there. We don't have to prove who wielded the knife. Because under principal theory, you're all in it together. Travis is just as guilty of that stabbing sitting in that truck outside. Folks, the principal theory, I always liken it to if 5 guys stomp a person to death. You don't have to prove which stomp actually killed the person. You're all 5 in it, you're all 5 doing it, the person died. Okay? Here, they're all engaged in the commission of this crime. That they all had the intention that crime be committed. We don't have to prove to you who actually stabbed Matthew Bonnett. What we did have to prove to you is that Matthew Bonnett did get stabbed during this altercation and that those stab wounds caused his death. And I submit to you, we have proven that. But as far as who did the stabbing on the inside, we don't have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt who did it because we don't know. Roger Raggett doesn't know, Paula Belmonte doesn't know, and Matthew Bonnett's not here to tell us. Next slide, please. Oh, before we leave that one, Dr. Steckbauer confirmed that it was stab wounds to the back. I think that's pretty much all we need to go from that one. That's fine, Vanessa. We can go to the next one. Thank you. Travis testified about Tucker and Wilson going through the gate of the treehouse. He saw them go in. Paula testified 2 people came up the stairs of the treehouse. Roger testified 2 people came upstairs. Roger testified the second guy was taller and skinnier than the guy attacking Paula. The guy attacking Paula, I think she referred to him at one point in time as a 250-pound gorilla, is what she said. And she said she couldn't see much other than that because he was on top of her. It corroborates Travis's testimony. Next one. Wilson was upstairs in the treehouse. How do we know Wilson made it upstairs? Travis saw Tucker and Wilson go into the treehouse. Paula testified the 2 people came up. Roger testified 2 people came up. Paula testified she knew the first guy. She knew him the minute he came up there. He knew him as Detroit. He'd been around the treehouse before. Had a very distinctive voice. Roger said he was familiar with the guy attacking Paula because of his sways. I believe what he was trying to say was swagger. Because of his swagger. He knew the guy's style, walk, the way he moved and talked. He didn't know the guy's name, but he'd just seen him around the treehouse and other places. That corroborates the fact that Wilson was upstairs in the treehouse, which is what Travis said. He saw him go in the gate. Next page, Vanessa. How do we know Tucker was upstairs in the treehouse? Again, Travis saw Tucker go through the gate with Wilson heading into the treehouse. During the recross of Roger Raggett, the defendant raised his hand way above his head and said, now this guy that was attacking you, would you tell me how tall he is? And Roger Raggett, who I submit to you, you're not going to get that guy to say anything that he doesn't believe in. He said, no, not that high. Bring it down, bring it down. Your height. About your height is what he said. About your height. And when I got up and asked him, did you say the second subject was Tucker's height? Yeah, I just said that. It corroborates what Travis said. The 2 went in that gate and into the treehouse. Roger Raggett corroborates that testimony. Next one. Oh, we're there. Sorry, Vanessa. You're anticipating. The snuff can. Travis testified that when they were all back at the warehouse, Wilson took a snuff can out. It was round, like a Copenhagen snuff jar or can, whatever you want to call it. Took it out of his pocket. And he did this upstairs while they were at the warehouse. What corroborates that? Roger Raggett said the man kept telling Paula, give it up, give me the money and drugs. And Roger told Paula, just give it up. It's not worth getting poked over, was what he testified to. And according to Roger, Paula said, take it. And she pointed to a little container on a little container, and the guy took it. A little container. Consistent with what Travis says Wilson produced back at the warehouse. Devil's in the detail. Travis is telling you the truth. Next page. The backpack belonged to Paula. Travis said he saw Tucker running out of the treehouse, fumbling with this backpack, and stuff was spilling out all over the place. He also testified that Tucker showed up at the warehouse with the backpack and emptied the contents out to see what they got. What corroborates that? Well, Detective Malone testified the backpack was found in an air handler closet up in Big Pine, and it had Paula's EBT card in it. She also said the other items in the backpack were hers. They were like women's items, notepads, or something else. Why was it up there with Travis? Travis told you. He was unpacking the Foot Locker that this defendant helped him pack when he was leaving the warehouse. Did that Foot Locker ever leave your sight? Yeah, it did. It was never in my exclusive control. Well, how'd you get it out of the warehouse? Tucker helped me. You think Travis is sophisticated enough to make that detail up? Tucker helped me. He gets up to Big Pine. What does he find in the Foot Locker? The backpack. So what does he do? He throws it in the closet. Out of sight, out of mind. Next one. Contents of the backpack we covered. Travis testified. Women's stuff, feminine effects, pens, notepads, trinkets, stuff to a female. Paula's video, she says, my keys, my jewelry, my perfume, a little pink purse, all women's things that had little witches on it. Detective DeValier testified he found a $100 bill, change, personal items like makeup, items that appeared to be from a woman's purse scattered on the ground outside of the treehouse. That's consistent with what Travis says. I saw him fumbling with the bag and stuff was emptying out of it. What does Detective DeValier find? Women's things that are consistent with what Travis just told you. Why believe Travis? The evidence supports his testimony. It's consistent. Next one. Travis said, I saw Tucker running down the street fumbling with this bag. Paula corroborates that. All I saw that second person doing was I saw him like this through the side of my body because I had someone on top of me. He was grabbing my backpack, opening up my backpack, consistent with what Travis said Tucker was doing when he came out of the treehouse. It supports Travis's testimony. Why believe it? It's corroborated. I'm sorry, but that's the next one. Still talking about Travis's testimony about Tucker running down the street. Paula's video deposition, which you saw, you did. It was your backpack. Is that correct? Yes. And who took it from you? The other person, not Rory. She'd identified Rory as the one on top of her. No, ma'am. It was the white guy. I can't say it was a white guy. I originally thought it was a black guy because he was wearing all black. And I was told it was a white guy. I don't know who took it. I know it wasn't Rory Wilson. Consistent with Travis seeing that Tucker coming out of the treehouse, fumbling with the bag. Yes, ma'am. Next one. Paula also says, I saw the second man with my backpack, and I saw him with the billy club, but I couldn't see Roger because Detroit was blocking my view. And at this point, I remember Paula kept describing this long item. It looks like now she sees a billy club with the man that's with Roger. Roger testified that man had a knife to his throat. We certainly know that something was to his throat. Now, could have been both, could have been one or the other. Doesn't matter. Next one. Travis testified that the $50 they gave him for the gas money smelled like perfume. That's completely consistent with what Paula said. Travis said it smells like perfume. Paula said, I think I had a brand new bottle of Dare perfume and some other items. And lo and behold, the money that nobody fed Travis that detail. Travis caught that detail up his narrative. It wasn't Penny Phelps's narrative. Don't be misled by that. It is Travis gave the details. Penny Phelps laid out the basics of what the investigation showed, but Travis filled in these blanks. Next one, please.
How were the bills? 20, 10, 5, 20, and 5s. And 5s, okay. And they smelled like perfume, I remember that. The one smelled like perfume. Wow.
Okay, next one. Travis says Tucker was upset with him. That makes sense. Of course he's upset with him. Came running out of the treehouse looking for the getaway car, and the getaway car took off. That shouldn't be hard to understand. Travis gets back to the warehouse. Tucker's mad at him. Travis says, I went for a walk to get cigarettes, just to take a break, walk away from that. You saw the Florida Keys Electric video. You see Travis walking along by himself, and then he comes back after he said he'd run into Rory Wilson. He comes back walking with somebody else. And he says, I ran into Rory Wilson when I went to buy those cigarettes. And that's consistent with what we see in the video. We see him walking to the CVS on his own, or the Tom Thumb, I'm not sure which one they're going to, on his own to get cigarettes. He comes back with somebody walking next to him. And remember, Travis gave this statement before he saw those videos. So he's not tailoring his statement to the videos. He gave that statement before they showed him the videos. When he saw the videos, remember, he said he was shocked that they had him on video. Again, why believe Travis? Devil in the detail. Next one, Vanessa, please. He confessed in November of 2017. He had no deal on the table, no promise, no anything. He's been consistent ever since. You saw the video of his confession. He testified here in court. Once he decided to fess up, remember when he said the jig was over? He gave the details on the plan and the execution and the aftermath of that murder in 2017. After that, he said they asked him to look at videos. And yeah, he said when he saw the videos, he initially identified himself, and he kind of vacillated because he was scared. He thought, God, they have video of me too. He was shocked to see that. I submit to you that's sincere. That is believable testimony from Travis. Next one. Travis testified he did not know about this treehouse until the incident. He didn't even know where the treehouse was, and he'd never been there. All right? What corroborates that? Well, Paula actually corroborates that. In Paula's video deposition, she's asked, and you saw this. This is the perpetuated testimony. You saw this yesterday. Do you know Travis Johnson? No, not personally, no. Prior to the date of this incident, you never hung out with him? No. Associated with him? No. I don't know. Oh, have you ever even met John Johnson? I don't know how to answer that because he might have been the person that was there with Detroit, but I don't know for sure. Other than that, the only time I ever saw him was in the newspaper and, here. Have you ever identified him? No, sir. As that person? No. Next page. Have you ever seen John Travis Johnson with Matthew Bonnett? No, sir. Have you ever seen him with Crystal? No. Have you ever seen him with Roosevelt? No. Have you ever seen him with O'Quinn? No. Have you ever seen him hanging out with any of your friends? No. Have you ever personally seen him at the Treehouse? No. It corroborates Travis when he says, I didn't even know where it was. I've never been there before. Paul is basically saying, I don't know who he is. He's never been over there. It corroborates Travis's testimony. Next one. Okay, now let's go to the next one. Paula's all over the place. Some of her testimony, she seems to get right. She starts in 2017, and you saw the hospital video yesterday. She was at the hospital the night of the attack, and she's adamant. I can't identify that second person. At one point, I think she gets upset with Officer Malone, and she says, lady, I told you this 3 times. I can't ID him. I had a 250-pound gorilla on top of me beating the shit out of me. That was what she said. She couldn't say anything about the second guy. Now, this is interesting. Paula testified that in the very few days right after the incident, they were at McDonald's on November 22nd. It's about, 4 or 5 days after this incident. And the defendant testified to this yesterday. I saw Paula at McDonald's. We weren't friends, but we knew each other. I was feeling so bad and so sorry for myself for being interrogated for this thing all night. And he's scared, and he's feeling sorry for himself, I guess. And I remember seeing Paula. This is his testimony. I remember seeing Paula, and she had a bandage on her neck from the knife, right? And I remember seeing her, and I was just like, all of a sudden, I felt like, well, I'm trying not to curse, but I felt really bad. Here I am feeling sorry for myself, and then I see her. That was his testimony. Next one, please. Paula's deposition back in May of 2019. This would be, what, about 2 years, almost 2 years after the event. Actually, he himself, Tucker, told me that when we were at McDonald's, he himself told me, oh, the police found a knife with blood on it. Because I said, oh, good, it would be my blood. And he said, no, it's Matt's. That confirmatory test didn't come from FDLE until months, years later. So how did he know that was going to be Matt's blood on the knife? He told Paula 4 days after the event. He told me they found a knife, and I said, oh, good, that'll have my blood on it. And he said, no, not going to be your blood, it's going to be Matt's blood. If he was passed out from his red balls or atom bombs or fireballs back at the warehouse, how does he know about that? How does he know Matt's blood's going to be on that knife? Because he was there. He knows where that knife went. It went into Matt's back. That's how he knows. He knows that knife is not the one that was used on Paula. He knows that knife is the one that was used on Matthew Bonnett. Remember, he brought the knife to that event. Travis saw the knife in his possession. So he confirms to Paula, no, that's going to be Matt's blood. And then she said, whether that was true or not, I don't know. He himself told me that while we were sitting at McDonald's, that the knife that the police found had Matt's blood. That's a quote from her answer. She said it at least twice. She was not mistaken about what she remembered him saying. And that's very telling. That's huge. Because nobody would have known. Even the detectives didn't know it was Matt Bonnett's blood on that knife at that point in time.
I'll sustain the objection to the extent, remember folks, this is closing argument. Your decision and verdict is based upon the evidence in the law. And the counsel's giving a closing, which is not evidence. So with that, you can proceed.
Folks, you heard the testimony from Angela, our DNA expert. That's when we got the confirmatory results of the blood on the knife. That was long after, 4 days after this was a year, at least several months after the event. Tucker's telling Paula 4 days after the event whose blood is on the knife. Nobody knows that, sir, except the people that were there. Next one. Okay. Nobody would know that except the people that were there, and that's huge. Now, the defendant took the stand, and he's been wrongly charged with this. That was his story. If you boil down his whole testimony, he started partying during Fantasy Fest, and the party never ended. He said this is usually what he does this time of year, and on the day of this, he remembers drinking these fireballs and got so hammered he fell asleep, woke up, police were everywhere. He remembers details that are, for somebody that was that drunk, he remembers the details of coming down the steps with his hands up back when they committed the raid. He remembers bits and pieces of conversations, but for the most part, he was watching his friend's room, drinking, and passed out. He remembers going to buy cigarettes. He throws that in there. He said he remembered feeling so bad for Paula at McDonald's. Didn't testify that he told her whose blood was on the knife. Again, how would he know that? Why did we put on the DNA analyst? Why did we put? Because we wanted you to know we did our jobs. We did our investigation. We submitted items for DNA testing. Sometimes you get results, sometimes you don't. On this particular submission, we got a result, a positive result for Wilson on the knife, and we got a slew of unconfirmed, can either say yes or no as a result, as it regards Tucker.
45 minutes.
45 minutes in, Judge?
Yes.
Very well. Now, a couple of excerpts I want to underscore from late yesterday. And again, I got a good time slot today, fresh in the morning. Yesterday afternoon, I got up here and I read into the record statements that Paula had made during her deposition in May of 2019. And I want to do that timeline for you. So the event happened in November of 2017. And she's adamant, can't see this other person, had this big guy on top of me, just couldn't see him, stop asking me that, I've answered this 5 times. Now we're in May of 2019. She's still saying she can't ID the second person. I can't ID him. Not that I can identify. I saw another person, but I can't identify him. Can you describe him? No, because I had Rory Wilson on top of me. You initially said you believe the second person had a billy club. I think that was Rory. Did you see the second person with any weapons? I don't know. I couldn't see the second person until they were going down the steps towards Matt because I had Rory Wilson on top of me. Do you remember what the second person was wearing? Dark clothing, corroborating what Travis said. You heard him say, I think we killed him. Now, she also talked about the McDonald's event. You recall seeing him at McDonald's. Did you know he had anything to do with it? No, ma'am, I did not, because I didn't know whether he had anything to do with it. I didn't even know that they all lived together. She didn't know about all that. Well, who told you he had something to do with it? Nobody told me. The police didn't tell you? Well, after they arrested him, yes. But not when I was having lunch at McDonald's, or I would have been nowhere near him. This was 4 days after. Are you sure he was involved? What kind of question is that? I told you I can't identify him. The person was wearing a mask. I can't say he had anything to do with it, and I can't identify him as being there one way or the other. Can't say he was there, can't say he wasn't there. And she goes on to say, actually, he himself told me at McDonald's that the police had found the knife with blood on it, and that's when he told me it was Matt's blood. He told me that while we were sitting at McDonald's. The knife that the police found had Matt's blood. Then there was a litany of questions about the scuffle between Roger and his assailant, which would be this defendant. Roger got thrown into a tarp. This is Paula's testimony. Remember what Roger testified to? I got thrown into some kind of a tarp. Paula says, I don't believe I said he was beating him. I was the one getting beaten. They had a scuffle, and you saw the second person holding a knife to Roger's throat? No, I didn't see that. You were told that? I was told that by Roger. That's why Roger wasn't helping me. Roger told her that the guy had a knife to his throat. These are all corroborating bits of evidence from Paula that corroborate Travis's statements. Again, the devil is in the detail. Now, Paula also makes a comment that at some point, Paula testified that a small knife fell from somewhere during the struggle. She thought it was Roger's knife, and she thought about grabbing it. So there was a second knife. One was on Paula's neck, and she saw another knife fall, a smaller knife fall. She thought it was Roger's knife, and she thought about grabbing it. So Paula herself introduces a second knife into this fracas inside the treehouse. The defendant grilled Officer Malone about her demotion from major crimes. Her demotion was not a demotion per se. She stepped down. The recommendation was she stepped down because she didn't want to do that work anymore. This was 2 years later. There was no finding that the evidence in this case had been tampered with, altered, tailored, or fabricated. No evidence of that.
Okay, well, I'm going to overrule the objection, and again, this is argument, as I've explained. So.
No evidence of that. Malone testified she committed some policy violations, but that evidence itself had not been tampered, compromised, or manufactured, and there was no finding that it was. The DNA evidence, again, inconclusive for this defendant. Where was it inconclusive as for Tucker? On the blunt end of the knife, the right side of the forehead of the mask, inside wrist area of the shirt, and the black glove. Doesn't mean he didn't touch these items, just means they didn't have enough in the DNA profile to make that comparison. Mr. Tucker also called Travis a free man. When you saw Travis, you saw him in the video. Travis is forever marked by what he got involved in here. He owns up to it. He'll wear it for the rest of his life. He's not a free man. He's a convicted felon, convicted of pretty serious charges. These will follow him, and he knows that. You saw him in the video. He was crying. He was upset. He was struggling because the gravity of what he had gotten himself involved in was setting in. Why believe Travis? I submit to you, you believe him because he's being truthful. Paula, you saw her on the night of the event, November of 2017. You've heard statements from her depot in May of 19. At some point in there, she does a trip to California because she's posting pictures of it. And now, at the perpetuated testimony in September or November of 20, now she's adamantly saying in her cross, it's not Tucker, it's not Tucker, it's not Tucker. Not until September of 20 does that come out. What changed from the night of the event to May of 2019 to September of 20? We know she was friends with the defendant's wife on Facebook. She mentioned that. They were talking up to 20 times a day. Paula went from living homelessly in a flop house to a trip to California.
Okay, I'm going to overrule the objection.
Living in a flop house for homeless people with no water and no electric, to posting pictures of her trip to California. And then she appears for her perpetuated testimony and says, it's not the defendant. It's not Tucker. Tucker wasn't the second guy. I can't say who it was, but it wasn't him. When she, at one point, told Officer Malone, I answered this question 5 times. I couldn't see him. I can't tell you. I can't even tell you if he was there or if he wasn't there. I didn't see enough of him. Now, new testimony. I submit you should take that testimony very cautiously, and you should reject it because it's simply not truthful. It has been tainted. Now, Law School 101, you're going to get a packet of jury instructions. You're going to get a packet of jury instructions that's going to give you all the law that pertains to this case. You're going to hear that the defendant was charged with first-degree felony murder because during the commission of a robbery, somebody died. The state has to prove that somebody died. I think that's fairly clean. That came from Dr. Steckbauer. Matthew Bonnett is dead. While engaged in the commission of a robbery, Tucker caused the death of Matthew Reed Bonnett. And then it's either or for the next element. Tyrone Tucker was the person who actually killed Matthew Reed Bonnett, or Matthew Reed Bonnett was killed by a person other than Franklin Tucker, but both Franklin Tucker and the person who killed Matthew Reed Bonnett were principals in the commission of the robbery. Principals in the commission of the robbery. I submit to you this defendant has been proven guilty of felony murder. You're also going to get what the law calls, hard to explain, lesser included charges. Okay? Basically what that's telling you is if you don't feel that the evidence has proven the crime that's been charged, you could go down one level to what they call a lesser included crime. So for instance, on the first degree murder, a lesser included crime of first degree murder would be second degree murder. So if you don't feel that the state has proven felony first degree murder, you can consider second degree murder. For second degree murder? Hold up, it's a lot here. Second degree murder, the state has to prove that Matthew Bonnett is dead. The death was caused by the criminal act of Franklin Tyrone Tucker. and there was an unlawful killing of Matthew Reed Bonnett by an act imminently dangerous to another and demonstrating a depraved mind without regard for human life. Just so you know, the principal instruction carries to every charge. The principal instruction carries to every charge, and I'm going to read the principal instruction, except these are smudged again. There we go. Let me read the principal instruction to you. This is the law the judge is going to advise you need to follow. If the defendant helped another person or persons attempt to commit a crime, the defendant, commit or attempt to commit a crime, the defendant is a principal and must be treated as if he had done all the things the other person or persons did. If the state has proven beyond a reasonable doubt the following. Number one, the defendant intended the crime to occur. And number two, the defendant did some act or said something that was intended to and that did incite, cause, encourage, assist, or advise the other person or persons to actually commit or attempt to commit the crime. To be a principal, the defendant does not have to be present when the crime is committed. Judge, I would just ask if the defendant can return to the defense table. I'm not using any more video.
Okay, fair enough.
That principal instruction runs to every single crime. The defendant intended for the crime to occur. Did he intend for the robbery to occur? Of course he did. Of course he did. Did he act or say something that was intended to and that did incite, cause, encourage, assist, or advise the other person or persons to actually attempt to commit the crime or to actually commit the crime? Sure he did. He got in the truck that day, loaded for bear, went over to the Treehouse, got out, went in with Wilson, committed the crime, active participant. He's a principal to everything that happens. So was Travis. Travis was a principal. To be a principal, the defendant does not even have to be present when the crime is committed. And I asked Travis, if you'd have known, did you know anything about principal or felony murder? He said, no, I didn't. Would you have ever gotten involved in this? Never, if I'd have known that. Is he remorseful? It doesn't matter. I submit that he is, but his testimony is supported by the evidence. Now, just a few more. Judge, how am I doing on time?
60 minutes, 59.
Okay. You know, this is a minor point, but in the Cosme videos, the defendant spent a lot of time going over the glare or the light in the front. If you watch the video, that glare never leaves that spot. That glare is coming from another location. If you watch the video, you can see the truck advance through that frame. When the truck advances through, there is a flash of light that I submit is the headlights of that truck, but the video speaks for itself, and you folks will be more than free to watch that video as many times as you would like. All the evidence will be going back with you to the jury room, so you'll have a chance to review everything. Paula testified that a small knife fell from somewhere. She thought it was Roger's knife. So there was a second knife involved, one on her throat, and the other one she saw fall that she thought was Roger's. Only one knife was recovered, but there is talk of two knives being involved in that fracas at the Treehouse that resulted in Matthew Bonnett's stabbing. Folks, at this time, I submit to you that Travis Johnson has been proven to be credible over and over again. His testimony is corroborated by other testimony and by other videos and other pieces of evidence, the knife, the mask. Why should you believe him? Because he's corroborated. The devil is in the detail here. Paula, generally speaking, testifies to a lot. The biggest change in Paula's testimony is her transition from not able to identify anything to it's not Tucker. And they're such good friends now that you saw pictures where he was laying in her hospital bed. She's supposed to got an infectious disease, and he's laying there with his tongue hanging out, no mask on. That tells you the kind of friendship they have now. Roger Raggett, I submit to you, no one's going to tell that man to say anything that doesn't exist. I smoke, I drink, I think it was Bud Lights. I drink my Bud Lights, and I smoke crack when I can. I go over to Paula's. Paula sells it at the Treehouse. Who supplies the party favors? She does. I don't bring it. But he goes over there and smokes her crack, smokes her weed. That's what he's been doing for how many years? And mowing lawn at the golf course. That's who he is. But his testimony corroborates Travis, and it corroborates Paula. I submit that Roger Raggett, completely believable. Is he the kind of guy you would normally see in your walk of life? Maybe not. Probably not. That doesn't mean he can't come in here and be truthful. That goes for all these witnesses. They might not be the kind of people you want at your Thanksgiving table. I don't know. But you're not here to judge their personal choices. You're here to judge the credibility of what they're telling you happened. And I submit to you that Travis Johnson, credible. Roger Raggett, credible. Paula, hit and miss. At the end of the day, when you go back there and you talk about this testimony and you watch these videos and you, by the way, you're allowed to read back on anything. If there's something that you would like to hear again, you can ask the judge to do that. You can ask the judge for whatever it is that will aid in your deliberations. You're free to communicate that with the court, and the court will do what they can to abide by your wishes. But at the end of the day, I submit to you that we have proven this case well beyond and to the exclusion of a reasonable doubt. And I'm going to ask you to go back to that jury room and don't be afraid to find this defendant guilty and hold him accountable for what he did that night in November of 2017 to Matthew Bonnett, to Paula Belmont, to Roger Raggett. Folks, I thank you.